Hi, everybody. It's me, Mike Celestino from LaughingPlace.com. We had a very big day yesterday with the big Disney Investor Day, all the crazy announcements. Joining me today is fellow Laughing Place reporter down in Florida, Jeremiah Good. Hi, Jeremiah.
Uh, Sorry, I'm coming to you off planet from this crazy place called Disney Springs parking lot.
Okay, but you are technically in Florida. I think I was correct about that, right? Um, so we're gonna go through all the announcements coming out of Lucasfilm yesterday, including all the big Star Wars stuff, and give you our thoughts as we look forward to this very bright and very busy future for the Star Wars franchise and other stuff coming out of Lucasfilm. Um, where should we start? Should we start with the Mandalorian spin-offs?
Oh, because you don't know anything about the Mandalorian season 2 going on.
That's true. Can you hear me okay, Jeremiah?
Sorry, I'm experiencing technical difficulties.
Okay. Well, Jeremiah can't hear me, so we're just gonna talk about Ahsoka. Do we have a logo? I guess
So
not.
I heard Ahsoka. Sorry, my
Yeah.
phone is in the parking lot isn't the happiest place. I think we all knew that Ahsoka was coming, but the announcement, that was the first thing off the bat. They showed the teaser and then they said, "Oh, and by the way."
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, when we saw Rosario Dawson pop up as Ahsoka in The Mandalorian a couple weeks ago, that episode to me seemed a lot like it would be kind of a backdoor pilot for an Ahsoka live action TV series. And I think they kind of introduced the plot in that she's still looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn and probably Ezra Bridger, the Jedi who disappeared at the end of Star Wars Rebels. So I'm guessing that's what we'll get in the Ahsoka series, which is exciting. That Rosario Dawson will still be reprising that role, and then Dave Filoni will be writing it, and both Filoni and Jon Favreau are producing it together. So that's great. But they're also doing another series called Rangers of the New Republic, which is interesting. We haven't seen a lot of stuff coming out of the New Republic in this era, so it'll be cool to learn more about what's going on with that. They haven't said what characters are specifically going to be involved here. I wonder if we can assume that it will be about Cara Dune, who is now a marshal of the New Republic. I don't know. Jeremiah, your thoughts on this one?
That one was a surprise to me. I mean, we knew Ahsoka. We had feelings that there could be other stuff, but I feel like this, we know that they have this grand plan that we are never going to be privy of. But the Rangers of the New Republic seems like it will be a buddy cop show to me. And that's what I really hope it to be. I mean, I actually hope that Dave is in it and they continue with what we've seen in some of the past episodes of them flying around. But I would love just this fun buddy cop show with them.
Yeah, I mean, my joke when they first announced this was, would this series be starring Dave Filoni? Which I don't think it will. I think he might pop up here and there as his character Trapper Wolf, but he was very hesitant to be on screen in The Mandalorian, so I don't think he's going to be like the featured performer in this series. But he'll probably show up as his pilot character. But I imagine we'll get a new cast of characters in addition to probably one or two familiar faces here and there. But yeah, curious to check that out. And they did say that the story of this series will culminate in the Mandalorian, or that they will have some overlap happening there. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I definitely am looking forward to this one because it will, it'll expand the universe. We know Ahsoka. We kind of know where her storyline is. Well, we hopefully know where her storyline is headed. But the Rangers of the New Republic, I feel like, could expand out. And one of the things that I remember before they kind of did away with the extended universe was the stories of the cantina from Star Wars where it was like each character had its own story. And with this, I feel like they could start to explore more of the core characters that we wonder where they are, and this is them rounding up some bounty hunters or that type of stuff.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. And then we also saw our first sizzle reel for the show Andor, which is about Cassian Andor, the character played by Diego Luna in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. There's the logo. And this, I'm very curious to see what this show is like. Obviously, it's about the Rebel Alliance in the days before the events of Rogue One, because Cassian dies at the end of that movie, so it can't take place after that. We've They did put out a cast list, some of which had been announced already, some of it was rumored already. But I thought it was interesting that Alan Tudyk was not listed on the cast, although I thought, didn't he appear at D23 Expo last year in promotion of this show? I
I
thought it had
believe
been.
so. Yeah, because
Yeah,
he was coming out like every other
yeah.
cast announcement, I thought.
So I'm pretty sure K2SO is part of this series, but maybe he just doesn't show up right away. Like, maybe this is the story about how they get K2SO from the Empire and reprogram him and everything. But yeah,
Did
I'm excited for this.
did they say, I don't recall if it was an ongoing series, or what are they calling the one season, the
Uh,
special event
Event
series?
series,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, let's see. I have the press release right here. So this says, it just says Andor, a tense, nail-biting spy thriller created by Tony Gilroy, who was the writer and the secret director of the reshoots for Rogue One. Um, is set to arrive on Disney Plus in 2022. Diego Luna, reprising the role of Cassian Andor from Rogue One, will be joined by a fantastic new cast that includes Stellan Skarsgård from Thor, Adria Arjona, Fiona Shaw, Denise Gao, Kyle Solar, and Genevieve O'Reilly, who's coming back as Mon Mothma. She was in Rogue One, and she was in a deleted scene from Revenge of the Sith, where she first played Mon Mothma. She does look like she does look an awful lot like the character who played Mon Mothma in Return of the Jedi too.
Yeah, she does that very well. Like, when I first remember seeing her, I was wondering if that was just a really good de aging, or if they found an
Yeah,
excellent casting. And of course, they found excellent casting.
yeah. So you excited for that one?
Yeah, I mean, this one we've known about, I feel, almost the longest. And just like you, Rogue One is probably one of the best movies outside of the original trilogy. So I'm excited to see, I guess not the continuation, but the setup, and learn about a new character and his place in the universe.
Yeah, me too. Looking forward to that. Um, then we have some big news about the Obi-Wan Kenobi series starring Ewan McGregor, which we've also known about for quite a while. But what we didn't know was that apparently Hayden Christensen will be back playing Darth Vader. Uh, they did not say he's playing Anakin Skywalker, which I thought was interesting. He will be Darth Vader. Now, what that actually means is up in the air, I guess, or remains to be seen. Will he be on set in the Darth Vader armor? Will we ever see Hayden Christensen's face? I don't know. I think it's an interesting announcement. It was rumored for a while, but I personally didn't think that would happen. And they've said now that Kathleen Kennedy said pretty much that they're going to fight. Obi-Wan and
Yeah,
Darth Vader are going to fight in this, which was also surprising to me because I always assumed they never interacted between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. Like there was no contact between Vader and Obi-Wan during that time, but I guess I was wrong.
I just actually read like a good, sorry, as I rotate, a good thought that, you know, the thing Darth says is, I feel something that I've not felt in, and then stops. And then, yeah, during the fight, when I last left you, I was bet the learner now. So what the theory that they threw out was, it's 10 years after the end of Revenge of the Sith, and 8 years ish. Well, how long in between Sith and BBY? Was it 16 or 18 for Luke and
Oh,
Leia?
19 years.
19. So they
Yeah.
have 9 years. So yeah, 9 years, especially in somebody who's in an iron lung, can seem like a long time. So the concept that they threw out was, there was a fight between them, and Darth Vader leaves Obi-Wan for dead, and then Obi-Wan goes back to Tatooine, and that's why they stopped looking for Obi-Wan, is he's assumed dead. So that's a concept that I could see. I mean, it does still kind of leave the when I last left you, I was about the learner part a little open.
Yeah, and we got to see some concept art for both this series and Cassian Andor. I haven't yet gone through each individual frame to see what we can see, but I do find it interesting that Obi-Wan is off kind of traveling around the galaxy and going to different planets. Like I kind of assumed that the Obi-Wan series would take place entirely on Tatooine.
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe that's not as interesting as planet hopping, but why is he leaving Luke? You know, the whole idea of him being on Tatooine is he's kind of watching over Luke Skywalker, make sure no harm comes to him or whatever. So what mission does he have off planet? I guess is the question.
Well, apparently he got some type of signal from the future from Grogu, and it just went back in time. I
Hey,
think that's
Grogu's around. Grogu is there. We may see
yeah.
Grogu. He's 50 years old, you know.
Oh,
So
jeez. Just imagine that's how it all happened. Obi-Wan went and saved Grogu as, let's not even try to figure out the timelines for that. But
right. You never know. You never know. Oh, even smaller Baby Yoda maybe in Obi-Wan Kenobi series. But this series is directed by Deborah Chow. I guess the entire series is directed by her. That's what it says in the press release here. So I
that
think
one
that
is an event series, right? That one's pretty much a eight and done or whatever, however many they end up doing.
yeah, that's what I had always heard. But it does say it says a special event series. Yeah, so that one is kind of a limited. I think probably one short season. Um, and then we also got a trailer for the Bad Batch, which is a spinoff of the Clone Wars. Now they had introduced these characters in 4 episodes of season 7 of the Clone Wars, although those episodes had been released previously in kind of like
Yeah.
unfinished form
It's
back
kind of
when.
because of them that we got the final season.
Right, yeah. So I think I was kind of wondering like why did they bother redoing these episodes and finishing them with more current modern animation, and they actually changed a couple scenes here and there. But it makes sense now that we know we're getting a whole series about the Bad Batch. I think they've said it takes place after Order 66, so I guess the Bad Batch survives that period. I don't know if it's clear whether or not they have participated in murdering any Jedi. Um, but it says here they find their way in a rapidly changing galaxy in the immediate aftermath of the Clone War. Okay, so members of the Bad Batch, a unique squad of clones who vary genetically from their brothers in the clone army, each possess a singular exceptional skill that makes them extraordinarily effective soldiers and a formidable crew. In the post-Clone War era, they will take on a daring mercenary missions. Why am I having trouble reading this? As they struggle to stay afloat and find new purpose. This animated series will arrive exclusively on Disney Plus. So, um, did you? Oh, Rebecca wants to know if we saw the Dianoga image. I think it was during the Obi-Wan preview. No, I must have missed that in the hubbub.
Yeah, it was just a quick. I believe it was just concept art. I don't even remember what it was, but I do remember seeing it and thinking of Rebecca. And Rebecca, if you want to kick Tony off of any stream, he did not know what the Dianoga's name was earlier when I was doing a walkthrough of it too, but I'll leave that to you.
Are you excited for the Bad Batch, Jeremiah?
I am, but this is one of those ones. I mean, this and one that we'll talk about in a little bit are two that I'm not overly excited for. I mean, I admittedly was never a huge Clone Wars fan because the animation style early on always bothered me and the non-linear storytelling. I think
Yeah.
this will be interesting as it goes forward, but it really does depend on what the story is. If it's, if it's one season, yes, two or three, the build is always good, and if it ties in with Rebels at somehow, or what happens with the Bad Batch is a whole other
Yeah.
question.
Well, you have to wonder how else they're going to populate the cast of this show because the Bad Batch is just however many clones, 4 or 5 clones or whatever,
Hmm.
all voiced by D. Bradley Baker. So you gotta fill in some other characters there. Probably a female character, I think, would be the idea to flesh out the cast, and maybe even Ahsoka Tano might show up. I
Although I
feel.
would love to see just the filming of D in like 5 different sound booths that he runs to do each one, because when he gets in that zone.
Right. But yeah, I'm sure I'll be recapping that whenever that starts up.
As
Um,
Benji said, you're going to be very busy, Mike.
yeah, that is true. But as I said, not all of this is arriving at the same time. It's going to be
Yeah.
spread out like they're doing with the Marvel series. They're not going to be airing. They're not going to be overlapping with each other. I don't think so. We'll get one, and then it'll move on to the next one, and so forth. I believe. Um,
We'll see.
there's also a series called Star Wars Visions, which is a series of animated short films celebrating Star Wars through the lens of the world's best anime creators. This is pretty interesting and kind of outside the box. I'm very curious to see what they do with something like this. It actually reminds me a little bit of something they do with Rick and Morty, the show on Cartoon Network that I really enjoy. It's more of an animated sitcom, but they also have like animated anime style shorts that they release
Mhm.
about the Rick and Morty characters or like different versions of them because the whole premise of Rick and Morty is that it's all different dimensions and stuff. So I imagine this is kind of going to be a similar type of thing. I'm not sure if they'll be considered canon as to the larger Star Wars saga, although most content is, even the
Yeah.
animated stuff. It just says it's going to offer a fresh and diverse cultural perspective to Star Wars. And there's a lot of Japanese and Asian cinema influence on Star Wars already, both in the original trilogy and even in the Mandalorian that we've seen pop up quite a few times. So it'll be interesting to see Japanese creators take on that universe.
Yeah, this one is very much a wait and see for me. Like everything else, they kind of gave a more than just a basic outline. Where this is anime, and I'm not much of an anime fan, but again, it's Star Wars, and I think we've all kind of fallen into the, oh no, what are they going to do to mess it up? But we all have to look at the past 5 years of Star Wars, and they haven't really done anything to mess it up. I mean, even people that don't like the movies, they have their highlights, and they fit in the they fit in the canon at some points. But this one, I will be interested to see the future of this one.
Yeah, I'm curious about it too, and it could go either way. It may come down to like episode by episode, depending on who's what the story is, what the characters are, and who's in charge of each one. Um, but then we also got the confirmation of another rumored series. This one is also an event series, meaning it probably won't go more than one season, but it is called Lando, and it's going to see the return of our favorite scoundrel who's not Han Solo, Lando Calrissian. They did not say who will be playing Lando. We all kind of assumed it was going to be Donald Glover reprising the role of young Lando Calrissian from Solo, a Star Wars stories. There have been rumors about Donald Glover coming back to Star Wars in that capacity, but Disney has not confirmed that. We do know that the gentleman who created the movie and the TV series Dear White People, which I have not seen. It's on Netflix. Is going to be developing this series, and then that's pretty much all the information. His name is Justin Simeon. So he's going to be, I guess, show running the Lando series, but that's all the information we have. We don't know when it takes place. We don't know who's
Yeah.
playing Lando. You said something yesterday, like it
Oh,
would be cool if they did like a young Indiana Jones type thing with the old Lando telling his stories about young Lando. So I think
yeah,
that could be interesting.
that could definitely like that. That's kind of how the trailer felt to me, where it was like they showcased not only Lando stuff, but they showed DJ, not DJ. They showed Lobot in there for
Yeah,
like a focus. So I'm hoping that it will be something that focuses not just on Cloud City, or if they did do the storytelling aspect of Lando's life. I mean, I didn't think of this until just now. Lando on the Falcon during Solo talking into his telling his stories.
the
So that could,
Calrissian Chronicles.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that definitely could be what we're looking at. And no matter what, if it's Donald Glover or Billy D, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. And I think this could definitely have more of the comedy aspect too, because they need some of the breaks where it's not just the serious tones, and Lando does that very well.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I like the idea of the Calrissian Chronicles, and you have each episode be a different adventure. Then you could have one with L337. We could have one that takes place before Solo. Then you jump a little bit later in time, and so forth. And maybe the final episode is him acquiring Cloud City or whatever. You could have adventures with Han. Maybe Han could show up. Alden Ehrenreich could play Han in,
Yeah,
in an
that could
episode.
be the sequels to Solo that we never got. So
Yeah, and who knows if Kira could show up. Daenerys, what's her name? Daenerys Targaryen. Emilia Clarke could show up as Kira, because we still don't have a resolution to that story with the Crimson Dawn and everything. So
well, I mean that could now we're just writing stories like, okay, so Darth Maul, that means Ahsoka, that means
yeah,
so we could, all of these could tie into the stuff that we've not seen, hopefully.
yeah. I think I have to say, of all the series that have been officially announced, the Lando one might be the one I'm most interested in personally, because I guess I have more of a connection to that character for 40 years, you know. I like Ahsoka, but I don't know her as well as I do
Mm-hmm.
Lando. So I am looking forward to the, and I thought Donald Glover was a great Lando. Even going back and rewatching that movie every time, I'm like, wow, he really nailed that character, and
Yeah.
even doing an imitation of Billy D. Williams without it feeling like a parody or anything. So I would like to see more of that. And Donald Glover has established that he's willing to work with Disney. You know,
Yeah.
he's Simba. You know, so he's doing Atlanta for FX, which is now Disney owned as well. So who knows? I'm very curious about that.
He'll have the Disney copyright on the bottom of his foot soon. Yeah.
Okay, so then another very interesting announcement. There's a series called The Acolyte. This is the one that's going to be created by Leslie Headland, who was the mind behind the series Russian Doll. Have you seen Russian Doll?
I've not. Oh, I've
Me
heard
neither.
about it. I haven't watched it, but I've heard it's
Yeah.
very uh, thought provoking and interesting.
I haven't seen it either, but I will hopefully have time to check it out just to see what her um, MO is, and the Dear White People too. I'd like to check that out as well. But the Acolyte is interesting to me because it takes place during the High Republic era. So now we know that the High Republic, which starts in January and was previously thought to be only a publishing initiative, because there are several novels coming out, there's comic books coming out. This story takes place hundreds of years before even the prequel trilogy. So we're rewinding time a bunch to see what the Jedi were like during their prime. But now we know, in addition to the publishing stuff, the High Republic will also be represented in TV. Now, it doesn't say in the press release that this is live action, but I think the assumption that is that it will be a live action series, and it's called well, they call it a mind bending. Oh no, that's the Russian doll. Okay, but they did call the Acolyte a mystery thriller that will take viewers into a galaxy of shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers in the final days of the High Republic. So I wonder if they're gonna build up to this with the publishing stuff and have the novels wrap up in the story of the TV show. I don't know.
Well, and that's one of the things with the High Republic. I mean, and as Star Wars fans, we always wanted to know more about the early days where generations of Jedis. And the High Republic, for me, has always been one of the. I am truly a Skywalker trilogy fan, and the stuff that comes out of it, if there's not a Skywalker or, a piece of it somehow, I'm always very weary of it. So the early days of the Republic when they're ruling the galaxy, we could see Palpatine in some form. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hesitant to say anything because I think I can say that I have read a lot of the High Republic, and I am not allowed to
Isn't that
talk about it yet.
Monday when we can read about that?
Yeah, so this coming Monday, the 14th of December, is when the embargo lifts on all that, and I'll be talking. Hey, you never know. The Mandalorian might connect to the Skywalker saga in some way.
It
So,
does. It's during
um,
that time period. Okay,
yeah,
let me clarify, Benji. During that time period.
yeah. I feel the same way, and I don't ever really find the Jedi as a concept to be that interesting when they're at their peak. I think they're fascinating when they're like almost extinct, which is again during the Luke Skywalker era, like when they're very mysterious and you're kind of finding out little bits about what the Jedi used to be. When you actually see them in practice, they're more like just like space police with magical powers. But uh, I mean, I have more to say. I have much more to say about the High
We'll
Republic.
talk about it Monday. On the
Yeah,
end of Monday.
but it is interesting to me, at the very least, that they are expanding that concept into other forms of media. So I bet we're going to see a bunch more High Republic news coming out in the coming months.
And
Um,
that'll be good because one of the things that we've always had is the problem with the canon, trying to fit things in, like the Obi-Wan. We are right now trying to figure out how they're going to fit Darth into this because we're so used to it. But having a clean slate to start with is always a positive thing, no matter how
Agreed.
weary I am about it.
Okay, so up next is a droid story, and Lucasfilm calls this the intersection of animation and visual effects. And Lucasfilm Animation is teaming up with the visual effects team, Industrial Light and Magic, to develop a special Star Wars adventure film for Disney Plus. So we were talking about this yesterday, and it is actually, they're calling it a film. It's not a series. This epic journey will introduce us to a new hero guided by legendary duo R2D2 and C3PO. So, A Droid Story is an
Babu Frick.
animated film about a new hero, but it's called A Droid Story, so I'm assuming the main character is going to be a droid. I don't know, which would be interesting our first time for that, except for the droids cartoon from the 80s. But
That's it. That was exactly. I was having a discussion with somebody about that earlier. Like, didn't we have this cartoon already?
yeah.
Yeah.
But this might be one of the things that Anthony Daniels was hinting at when he did this press conference for the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special a couple weeks ago. He said that C-3PO is far from over for him, but he couldn't talk about what was coming up. So I'm guessing A Droid Story is one of those projects that he will be involved with as the voice of C-3PO, because Anthony Daniels is very, very protective of that character.
Yeah.
And frequently they'll have him pop up. Like even in I remember the Lego movie, not even the Lego Star Wars animated stuff, but the Lego movie, he plays C-3PO for like one short scene, you know. Um, so I bet that he'll be around again for a droid story, this animated film, and I think this is, yes, it's coming to Disney Plus as well.
Yeah, and that's one of those ones. Again, this stuff is so far out; they're not giving us any of the good details. So I'm fine with that. And the speculation, of course, drives us. We're having conversations about it online right now.
Yeah.
But I would have liked, a little bit more details about this,
Right.
because it is something that, the character, out of all the characters that we grew up with, C3PO and R2 have been a part of every single step. So hopefully, hopefully Wicket does show up, and then they end up going to Forest Moon of Endor for a little bit, and then they can go to that live action TV show about Ewoks.
Sure. Why not? The sky's the limit. The galaxy's the limit. So we did get an update about the Taika Waititi Star Wars theatrical film. Uh, Kathleen Kennedy said Taika's approach to Star Wars will be fresh, unexpected, and unique. His enormous talent and sense of humor will ensure that audiences are in for an unforgettable ride. I'm a big fan of Taika Waititi. I think he's a hilarious person, a good filmmaker. I love What We Do in the Shadows. I thought Thor Ragnarok was a lot of fun. He directed the season finale of The Mandalorian last year. I'm a little hesitant about him making a Star Wars movie because I think his tone is just a shade like lighter than I want Star Wars to be. It leans a little more heavily on the humor aspect of it than I usually like to see in Star Wars. But I'm looking forward to seeing it. Curious to see what he comes up with, when it's going to take place, what characters are going to be involved. We don't know any of that yet. What do you think?
This one, because we don't know anything about it, for me is very much I need something more. I mean, he does everything great. There hasn't been a single thing, and like you were listing off his credits. Oh, lens flare. There we go. Um, Everything that he's touched has been something entertaining. We love the stuff that he did with Mandalorian. So I just hope that it's not stepping into that comedy realm that Kathleen kind of put a poo-poo on when she took
Yeah,
over. But
right.
I would like to see something that's a little bit less, you know, like like the Lower Decks show that Star Trek does. It's a comedy base, but it still has its. This is the second time I'm leaned into Star Trek with you, but something that's not just a comedy. And I think he has. I have faith that he will do something good.
Me too. Me too. In the end, I am very much looking forward to his take on a Star Wars project that's not, somebody else's that he's kind of playing around in. So he's getting to build this from the ground up, unlike The Mandalorian, where he just stepped in to direct an episode. Rebecca says she's super excited for Droid's story. And Jerry said Ewoks are so much more than we thought. I guess that's probably true.
Yeah.
And he said, Jerry said, I think the Family Guy producer guy would be a good director for Droids or Ewoks series short. So Seth MacFarlane, I guess, is who he's talking about. Have you watched Seth MacFarlane's Star Trek kind of homage show? What's that
Oh
called?
yes.
Why
It's
don't we know that?
I know. I watched a couple of episodes of it. It's a bird. I for the life of me can't think. Somebody tell us what it's called.
Yeah.
Um, and when it started out, like I was saying about the Taika, it was pure comedy and just kind of a spoof on it, and then it kind of became more serious,
Yeah.
but with the same aspect. So I would love to see him do something in the Star Wars universe, but I
The
think that he's a
Orville.
little tight. Thank you, Benji. I
So
think
yeah, now you thought of a bird because Orville is the name of the seagull in The Rescuers, right? But it's also a reference to one of the Wright brothers
Yes,
who
no, that
invented flight.
mine was exactly the seagull from Rescuers. Oh,
Seth MacFarlane is a huge Star Wars fan. There's many Star Wars references on Family Guy all the time. They also did that whole trilogy of Family Guy like short movies that
yeah,
parodied the original trilogy. And there's a great interview that I've watched a few times actually between Seth MacFarlane and George Lucas. And part of that interview, I remember Seth MacFarlane is like quizzing George Lucas on the music. Like he would hum part of the music from the original trilogy and ask George Lucas if he could tell him what scene it was from. And George Lucas failed all of them, but
oh, I'll
it's
have to go
it's really
find that.
funny. Yeah, you could find that on YouTube. Um, and I bet Seth MacFarlane would jump at the chance to. There we go. Jessica knew to Orville. I bet Seth MacFarlane would jump at the chance to do Star Wars. Benji asks, why didn't they mention the Rian Johnson trilogy? Yeah, so Disney did officially announce that Rian Johnson would be making a Star Wars trilogy of his own before The Last Jedi came out
Yeah,
into theaters. So that would have been several years ago now. And since then, we have not gotten an official update on that, on either side, whether it had been canceled or pushed aside for other projects. I know Rian Johnson occasionally says he's still working on it, but we have no idea right now where that project stands. There's also the Kevin Feige Star Wars project that got officially announced like a year or so ago that we have no idea what's happening with that. But we do know what officially the next Star Wars movie to hit theaters will be. And this is a great segue to talk about Star Wars Rogue Squadron, directed by Wonder Woman director Patty Jenkins. And I think a lot of people are really excited about this, not only because Patty Jenkins is a really great action director, but also because Rogue Squadron has been a part of Star Wars since the original trilogy, and it was a series of books that I loved growing up in the 90s about Wedge Antilles and his buddies flying around in X-Wings. But the press release for this movie says that it will introduce a new generation of starfighter pilots as they earn their wings and risk their lives in a boundary-pushing, high-speed thrill ride and move the saga into the future era of the galaxy. To me, that implies that this movie will take place after the Rise of Skywalker. What do you think, Jeremiah?
I, I would like to think that, but I feel like they won't do it. I feel like at this point they're not going to do anything past Rogue. I'm not, sorry, past Skywalker, and this could be the introduction, in between Solo and Episode 4 of how Wedge and everybody kind of forms the Rogue Squadron.
Okay, but what is your interpretation of that then? The future era of the galaxy.
That's why I'm a little iffy on, is it going to be the future, or is it just them kind of branching out from, this takes place the same time in between Episode 4 and 5 or something like that.
We'll see.
So
Well, what was that comment? I missed that comment that came up there. Benji put up. Oh, Jerry says this is what he's most focused on. So yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of people excited for this because I know a lot of people are into the pilots of Star Wars quite a bit. So I think that's why they're making this movie. And also, I want to think they're making this movie, or I have a feeling they're making this movie because of the word rogue being in the title, and Rogue One is such a big
yeah,
hit. It was a really big surprise hit, so you have that recognizability in the title. People going, okay, Rogue One, Rogue Squadron, even though Rogue Squadron was named first, long before Rogue One came along as
yeah.
kind of the story of how that got named. What's that?
I mean, that's one of those things that we again, we have to wait and see where it actually goes. But I love the fact that Patty is on board. I also love the fact that they're now stealing DC directors after James Gunn incident. But the video she posted about her father being a fighter pilot and how much she loves it, that just gives me so much hope for this film.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, go and check out Patty Jenkins' Twitter account where she shared a video of her. She's like rollerblading on pavement. Then she like stops and starts taking off her rollerblades, and she's telling the story about how her dad was a fighter pilot, and she's always wanted to make a movie about fighter pilots. And then she like puts on the X-wing pilot helmet and she
Yeah, the
walks
flight
off.
suit.
Right, and she's like zipping up the orange flight suit and walks off toward an X-wing in the distance. So very inspirational. Are you going to be watching Wonder Woman 1984 on Christmas Day?
Yes, absolutely. Like,
Yeah, my wife and I are trying to decide which order we're going to watch them in, Soul or Wonder Woman. So
yeah,
we have to decide how that's going to work, but we're both very excited for both of those.
I think I think Wonder Woman will be a great like morning, and then Soul will be the good way to wrap up Christmas, is push in that, that happy mood, because I'm pretty sure Wonder Woman 84 is going to have a lot of death in it.
Oh gosh, I wasn't thinking about that, but sure. Right, Jerry says, right, the techno side of the stories as the Skywalker saga imposed life in the galaxy without the Jedi. I guess I understand what he's saying there. Um, all right, let's. I think that's it for Star Wars. That's
Are
all the
we-
Star Wars news, but we do have more to talk about from Lucasfilm.
yes,
Uh,
a couple of projects that I'm very excited.
Yeah, but I think before we move on to that, let's just talk about how do we both feel about the future of Star Wars based on these announcements.
Go ahead.
Okay, I am mostly excited, though there are a few of these I'm kind of lukewarm about. I think is mostly my feelings. I think I'm mostly excited about Lando, seeing that story continue, and then the spin-offs of The Mandalorian, seeing that world expand, because I feel like there's so much fertile ground in what Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are doing with The Mandalorian. So it's going to be great to have a whole world of series, like this little mini storytelling universe inside the larger Star Wars universe that's all going to be interconnected and stuff like that. That's what I'm excited for.
Wait, so Jon Favreau's creating a universe that's interconnected? Where has that happened before? Uh, no, I completely agree. There are things that I will wait and see, and just like every Star Wars fan, there's stuff that you'll love and stuff that you'll hate, and the exact opposite will other people, and we'll argue about it for days.
Oh yeah.
But Ahsoka is probably the number one thing I'm looking forward to, and I that is mostly because I loved Rebels. That was one of the things that really kept me in the Star Wars universe during the sequel time, where we were unsure of how everything was going, but Rebels was the cartoon that kept me going, and hopefully
Yeah,
finish it.
I totally agree with what you were saying too. What I used to say back in the early days of the Disney Star Wars movies, so like 2015, 2016 or so, I used to say to people, if you don't like this year's Star Wars movie, just wait, there's going to be another one right around the corner.
Yeah.
And that's going to how it's going to be with the TV shows now. It kind of feels like we've gone back to that point in time where there were so many projects ahead of us, and now the movies are kind of slowing down for a little bit. We're going to get a bunch of TV and then a few movies too in the coming years from Star Wars. Rebecca said she is excited for the possibility of crossover Disney Plus events among these Star Wars series. Yeah. So I could see this playing out like a comic book series, actually, where you get individual episodes and then you'll have like or what they used to do with Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel and stuff, where an episode will start on the Mandalorian and then you got to jump over to Rangers of the New Republic to watch part 2, and then Ahsoka part 3 or something. That would be pretty interesting.
Yes, hopefully, that's one of the things that with a new series coming out, right now, just like you, we're waiting until Friday at midnight for you, 3 a.m. for me, for Mandalorian drop. And I was up this morning at 3 a.m. to see that episode.
Oh, wow.
But if we have multiple series going at once, that would be great. So we have the opportunity to have discussions every other day about the Star Wars series, which we still do anyway.
So that's Star Wars. Lots of exciting stuff coming up in the years to come, and we'll all get together and celebrate at Star Wars Celebration in
That's going to be insane.
2022. Yeah, so much to talk about before then, and let's talk about those other few Lucasfilm projects. The first of which was Willow, which was already announced, and it says it's set decades after Ron Howard's 1988 movie, and it continues the spirit of adventure, heroics, and humor of the original film in this new series debuting on Disney Plus in 2022. So we got a couple years to wait for that. Warwick Davis is returning in the role of the great sorcerer Willow Ulfgood. I think they spelled his name wrong in this press release. I could be wrong. I thought it was Ulfgood. Maybe it's Ufgood. With John Chu, director of Crazy Rich Asians, directing the pilot episode.
Because that sounds like it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I guess he likes Willow. I don't know. I like Willow. I remember I took a class on George Lucas in college, and they showed us Willow in the theater on campus, and it was the first time I had seen it since I was a kid. And I remember walking out of that screening thinking, wow, Willow is a really good movie. And I've watched it since Disney Plus launched last year because it's on there, and it is good, but it's a better movie to watch in the theater, which is tough to do nowadays because they don't play it that often. But I like Willow, and I'm curious to see that world expanded upon. I always thought it's very heavily influenced by Lord of the Rings. I know George Lucas was a fan of Tolkien's writings, and it's very obvious the kind of parallels between the world of Willow and, like, the Hobbits and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what they do with this series. I know Jonathan Kasdan, who wrote Solo, a Star Wars story, is writing the series. So I think he did a good job on Solo. He's the son of Lawrence Kasdan, despite the nepotism there. I think he's a good writer. Yeah.
The name gets quite a bit of credit alone. So
yeah.
No, Willow is definitely one that I'm most excited for. I mean, giving us more of the information about it. I like how they told us it was set decades after, so it's not going to be Warwick de-aged or some random thing. It's going to pick up, where it's going to happen, and who knows who may show up in it.
Mad Mardigan. Will we get old man Val Kilmer back for Willow? What else is he doing?
Yeah.
Is he in the Top Gun sequel that's coming out?
I don't believe so. Actually, no, I think he is. I think he has a part in it, but not anything large. But
I would feel like that would be a missed opportunity if he didn't show up. But yeah, I would like to see. Oh gosh, that's sad news. I would like to see Val Kilmer in this show. Who knows if that will happen?
Yeah, I mean,
way to bring everybody down.
that show has lots of promise, and I think that's something that Disney Plus needs, is more of the sword and sorcery type show. So that could be, I don't think it's our answer to
Game
that
of Thrones
show. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a step in that direction.
True enough. I will be looking forward to checking that out. Then we got another date for Indiana Jones 5, which has been both rumored and officially announced previously. Of course, the pandemic pushed it back again, but now we know it is coming out, or it is now slated for July 2022. Previously announced as well was the director James Mangold taking over for Steven Spielberg. I am hesitant about that because Steven Spielberg has directed every other Indiana Jones film. I would have liked to see him close it out with the fifth and final one. It's kind of a bummer that he's not. To me, I think James Mangold is a good director, though, and a good choice to take over. And I think he would probably mimic that style pretty well. And, of course, Harrison Ford is now reaching an age where it's time to wrap this up. And hopefully it'll be a step up from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. How about you, Jeremiah? What do you
Anything's
think?
a step up from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I wouldn't doubt if we see Steven's name somewhere in the credits still.
I think he is acting as producer, yeah.
Yeah, but I could still see him out on set, like Lucas had done with a lot of his projects, where he's still around kind of over the shoulder going, no, you should do this. It is his baby. But Indy 5, at this point, I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not holding my breath anymore. I mean, especially after Kingdom, we all kind of went,
Yeah.
oh, okay, let's
Well,
just let it pass.
it's good to have a bottom, like it's good to have it can't possibly be. I
Yeah,
mean, I guess it could possibly be worse than because Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's interesting though that, excuse me, James Mangold was uh, not announced officially, but I think it had come out through the trades that James Mangold was going to direct a Boba Fett movie for Lucasfilm a couple
the
years
direct.
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then that got shelved after Solo underperformed, and then that kind of gave birth to the Mandalorian, which is it's kind of interesting how things play out in that way. That I don't think the Mandalorian would have happened necessarily if the Boba Fett movie had gone forward. It would have been too similar. But now we've got Boba Fett in the Mandalorian and James Mangold making Indiana Jones. It's a crazy world we live in, and
they can still do the crossover. Boba Fett can show up and Indy. Yeah, I like that. Like you said, if not for Solo, who knows where we'd be today?
yeah, that's true. I don't know. The past few years have been so crazy as far as like the turnover in news in regards to Star Wars and stuff like that. But
Yeah, that's we need to keep a scorecard of what is. I mean, I know
right,
Kyle will keep the scorecard of what does and doesn't happen for this
yeah,
announcement, but there was a
yeah,
ton of traffic for that announcement.
right. They have said that production will begin this spring on Indiana Jones 5. So Harrison Ford, wear that mask. Please don't fly around. Uh,
That's the key. Stop flying.
yeah. Okay, let's move on to a project called. Wait, is that in this?
Yeah,
I don't. Oh yeah, Children of Blood and Bone. So this is an adaptation of a best-selling novel by Tomi Adeyemi, and it introduces a new hero and explores an original world that feels perfectly paired with Lucasfilm storytelling. The story will center on a young African girl's heart-racing quest to restore magic to her forsaken people, the Magi. And Lucasfilm is partnering with 20th Century Studios on this coming-of-age adventure. That's an interesting thing to hear because 20th Century Studios is just another like
yeah,
subdivision of Disney at this point. I guess just the particular executives that are working on this are housed under 20th Century. I don't know. There's the novel cover by Tomi Adeyemi. I don't know too much about this, but it's interesting that it's a Lucasfilm project that's not indie or Star Wars. Occasionally, we've gotten those even within the last decade. There's been, Red Tails and Strange Magic, and then when I was growing up, there was of course Howard the Duck, very very early Marvel Comics adaptation,
the
and
first
then
Marvel Comics adaptation.
is that the first live action
Yep.
Marvel movie? Wow, I
We
never
had the
thought of that.
Spider-Man cartoons and the Spider-Man show, but Howard the Duck was the very first MCU movie that somehow they'll have tie to. Spider-Man 3 will have some tie to it.
Yeah, now they got to
Ooh.
bring Jeffrey Jones in for Spider-Man 3 or Leia Thompson or somebody. But yeah, I'm curious about this. I'm interested to see Lucasfilm try out some different stuff. So the company's celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2021, and they got to start branching out. Keep people working it, even outside of all these many Star Wars projects coming out.
Yeah, I'm going to actually get that book on audio and start listening to it so I can have an idea. And then, of course, when it comes out, I will complain that it wasn't as good as the book, but still.
Fair enough. I'll probably check it out too if I have time. But yeah,
You
that's
don't have
everything.
time, Mike. You
I
you
don't.
have
Yeah,
no time. You
you're
are
right.
chained to that desk with Star Wars for the next 5 years.
It is. I have compared my job a little bit to the episode of The Simpsons where Homer goes to hell and they force feed him all the donuts.
Mhm.
You know, it's kind of like that.
Here, Mike. Here's more Star Wars. Here's
Yeah.
more Star Wars.
But yeah, no complaints because Homer keeps eating the donuts, and he keeps going like more, more. So yeah, that's how I feel about Star Wars. Keep shoving it in. I have no hesitation about consuming as much Star Wars as you want to shovel into my mouth. That's great. But that's it. That's everything that we know is coming from Lucasfilm, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, all that fun stuff. And we're coming up on an hour. So unless there's any more questions or unless you want to say something else, Jeremiah.
No, I think we went over it. I'm looking forward to Monday, where I get to help you out with Mando Monday and talk
Yeah.
about mostly about the episode that we watched today, but we'll talk about that more on Monday.
Yes. So tune in Mando Monday, this coming Monday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. And then also a bunch of stuff coming on Monday about the High Republic as well. So lots of fun Star Wars stuff. Next Friday is the Mandalorian season finale. And then it's a little break for Christmas, and we'll be back in 2021 with more. Thanks for watching.
But aren't you Saturday doing trivia?
Yes, I'll be guest co-hosting Disney Trivia Live this Saturday evening right here on the Laughing Place YouTube channel. Nothing to do with Star Wars, though. It's all holiday themed this time.
Really? Really?
There's one Star Wars question.
Okay.
I did write one Star Wars question.
Okay, and that's it.
Fair enough. Thanks, Jeremiah. Thank you, Benji, for helping with the images. And we'll see you real soon. Thanks for watching, everybody who tuned in.
Like, subscribe, ring our bell, all that.
Yeah, I forgot to say that.